So I realized that the global retirement systems are broken. They either won't survive the change in demographics, like Social Security in the US, or let's say the first pillar, how we call it in Switzerland, or they are so broken that over half of the funds are wasted. For years, governments have promised what they cannot deliver. But in recent decades, the problem has gotten extreme and is going to become far worse. So that funding gaps, like you mentioned earlier, is $100 trillion today, right? And in 25 years, it will balloon to 450 trillion, which is nearly 4 times the world's global GDP, just to put this number in context. So this isn't just a crisis. This is a financial time bomb. And TimeTrust can fix that.
Welcome to the 10th anniversary season of Swiss Impact with Banerjees.
This season, we bring you the movers, shakers, and visionaries who are redefining industries and turning investments into real lasting impact.
These are the investors changing the game, driving sustainability, transforming lives, and proving that profit and purpose go hand in hand.
Every investment is a choice to shape the world we leave behind. If you're ready to be part of something greater, to invest in impact, to invest in hope, to invest in change,
this is where your journey begins. Welcome to this eye-opening episode of Swiss Impact with Banerjees, where we tackle one of the biggest crises of our time, one that will affect nearly every person on this planet. What is that? The collapse of retirement as we know it.
Imagine this. You worked hard all your entire life, paying into pension fund, trusting that when the time comes, the fund will support you. But what happens when that promise is broken? When the fund runs dry, when inflation eats away at its value, or when social security systems collapse? This is not a distant dystopian future. It is happening right now.
Across the developed world, in Europe, Japan, the United States, and increasingly in emerging markets, social security systems are on the brink. Why? Because for the first time in history, we have more retirees than young workers. Birth rates have plummeted, life expectancy has skyrocketed, and now AI and automation are replacing millions of jobs, reducing the contributions that keep these systems alive.
And when these systems can no longer sustain themselves, governments will have only 2 choices. Print more money, causing massive inflation that wipes out savings, or cut benefits, pushing millions of elderly people into poverty.
Then this is not just a financial crisis, it is a humanitarian crisis. And the shortfall is huge. It is 450 trillion US dollars in retirement funding. And it's not just a number, it represents real people struggling to afford food, rent, electricity, and even basic medical care.
And for many, this means a cruel choice. Go hungry or freeze in the cold. In some countries, it means no access to medication, leading to suffering or even death.
And it's not just the elderly who will bear the burden. Their children and grandchildren will be forced to step in, paying the parents' medical bills instead of investing in their own future or their kids' future.
But there is hope. Right now, a group of innovators from Switzerland, Silicon Valley, and New York are revolutionizing the way we think about retirement.
And they are reinventing financial security for future generations, ensuring that no one has to suffer simply because they live too long. The groundbreaking solutions could transform the way we save, invest, and retire.
And today, we bring their vision to you. Stay with us as we dive deep into the future of retirement, finance, and impact investing. Because this is a conversation none of us can afford to ignore anymore.
So today's guest, Walter Bachtiger, the founder of TimeTrust, will share his revolutionizing solution with you. Welcome, Walter. Are you here with us?
How are you?
Hi,
Thank you
Walter.
for having me on the show. I also have Michael. He's my co-founder and my partner.
Hi, Michael. What a surprise. Welcome as well.
Pleasure.
Great to have you with
Thank
us.
you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Sveta. It's a pleasure. And we're glad to be on your show. And thank you for celebrating TimeTrust as one of the greatest impact projects of our time, which it is. It has been a pleasure working with Walter and developing this solution that Walter is going to talk about, as well as the team and all the potential that we bring to the table. So, Walter, I'll let you take it from here.
Walter, before we start with questions, I want to briefly introduce you so that our audience doesn't know you yet, but soon they will. So you are a Swiss-born economist, tech visionary, and voice-based founder, serving Fortune 500 giants like T-Mobile. In 2021, it was acquired for 60x its seed valuation, the companies that you worked for. And your work has earned many awards like Gartner, Cool Vendor Award, and Edison Award, and many others. And now, what we said, you are tackling the $450 trillion retirement funding gap, aiming to lift millions of seniors out of poverty. So welcome, Walter.
Thank you.
Michael.
You know, Michael is one of the greatest business development person that I've ever met. We literally just really work well together as a team, and that has been, very successful. And, Michael brought a range of very powerful people to the team that we have here at TimeTrust. I mean, these are people like the former COO and CEO of Herbalife, which we all know that's a company that the guy then grew to billions and billions of dollars in revenue, expanded it to 60 countries, managed over 4 million salespeople. And obviously having that type of caliber in the company, we strive to also distribute TimeTrust into 60 countries in every country on the planet, because we believe every senior deserves that their retirement funds are doubled. So we have there's a lot of other people that you don't have on the show right now that are behind that support TimeTrust. There's the former president of Morgan Stanley Distribution. He was responsible at Morgan Stanley for all the asset management, investment management, and product sales. Also the former investment officer and chief economist of Nationwide Insurance. That's one of the largest insurance companies on the planet. And so, we believe our current team that we have, that Michael brought to the table, we can truly achieve anything. And we believe we can tackle it is this largest crisis, which the retirement crisis is, very successfully. So,
wow. And thank you, Walter and Michael. So beyond your impressive career, can you tell us who is Walter and what shaped you, your values, your relentless drive that brought you here today?
That's a question to you, Michael, right? So share from your perspective, as you know him a lot. So who is Walter?
Ben, Sveta, it's funny. Before I met Walter, I always said I would never join another early stage company. But when I heard Walter's vision and the potential for impact that this is going to have, and also saw his relentless drive, passion for building companies, delivering value to investors, and his AI genius, he convinced me to join TimeTrust. So, the fact that I'm here speaks for itself.
Amazing. So you guys sold your company VoiceBase for $125 million, right? US dollars. And many people would have been very happy to have such results. But instead, you launched now TimeTrust. So what keeps you driving and going forward instead of retiring?
Yeah, so I've always loved the process of going after big challenges and solving big problems, finding a solution, finding that puzzle piece that completes this big vision. To me, that is a life of purpose. And to me, having an impact, changing life for the better, that was just a big driver for myself. And, TimeTrust, and you'll hear about that later, is simply the biggest impact play on this planet. It can improve the lives of hundreds of millions of seniors and their families. And we believe we can make a true impact. And for me, that is really what drives me. So.
That's amazing. How about you, Michael? What drives you?
I'm driven by pretty much the same thing, right? It's all about delivering impact. It's delivering value, and it's delivering results. This market is so large and the problem is so vast. There's really no problem that's worse than this. I can't imagine a fear that's worse than being poor in the old age. And so you'll hear more about the solution. And, Walter has come up with an incredible way of solving this.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike. So Walter, we heard that your sister's retirement savings sparked this entire journey. So can you take us back to the moment and what really shocked you the most?
Yeah, so after I sold my company, I was looking at my sister's retirement account, and I noticed that she kept all her retirement funds in a savings account, which practically had no interest. And
in America or in Switzerland?
It's in Switzerland. And so, as you might remember, during COVID times, those savings account actually often had a negative interest rate. That was also the case.
Correct.
With her. And so no one ever told her that there are better options. And they even, and so I would say the system was basically robbing her blind. And so it gets worse. So as I started looking into that, I realized that even in many countries, the government even recommends people to keep their retirement funds in a bank account.
In Switzerland,
right?
It is supported also by the regulations and everything. They advise people to do that.
It is crazy. So I realized that the global retirement systems are broken. They either won't survive the change in demographics, like Social Security in the US, or let's say the first pillar, how we call it in Switzerland, or they are so broken that over half of the funds are wasted. Like is the case in the US with 401k, IRAs, third pillar in Switzerland, or then also insurance annuities, which is also one of the worst products out there in a way. So I realized that it is possible to recover the more than 50% of funds that the average person loses in their retirement accounts, right? And so most people are going to face severe challenges in their old age. And so, that basically led us to the creation of TimeTrust.
So let's then dive deeper into that. So we often think of retirement as time to relax after working, right? So many years. But the reality is really different. In some countries, people are even dying after retirement, but that's another story. Let's stick to the... So even in wealthy countries like Switzerland, nearly half of seniors are struggling. How bad is the global retirement crisis? Can you tell us, Walter?
Well, yes. So with Social Security, for example, for years, governments have promised what they cannot deliver. But in recent decades, the problem has gotten extreme and is going to become far worse. So that funding gaps, like you mentioned earlier, is $100 trillion today, right? And in 25 years, it will balloon to 450 trillion, which is nearly 4 times the world's global GDP. Just to put this number in context. So this isn't just a crisis. This is a financial time bomb, okay? And most governments and most politicians won't admit it because seniors are voters. And so meanwhile, on a personal level, in the US, half of 55-year-olds have no savings. And even in Switzerland, which you think is one of the most educated countries from a financial perspective, right? There are 3 out of 4 people who won't have enough money to retire comfortably. So even people who have, and then it's also shocking, even people who have hundreds of thousands, or let's say $1 million or so in retirement funds, have the possibility to run out of money and end up poor in retirement if they live long enough, and due to the waste that is inherent in the system. So,
but Walter, these are amazingly large numbers you're mentioning. 400 trillion, 450 trillion. But what does it mean to an average retiree?
Yeah, look, the reality is this. Governments just do not have the funds to bail out people when they run out of money, and it is getting worse and worse. So in social security systems, government borrow money to pay the seniors today, and in the future they have to tax someone to replenish that money, right? The problem is that there are more old people and fewer younger people, and the cost of living is going up. So meanwhile, the young people are just not earning enough. So there's not enough people to tax to pay for all those old people. And so every dollar missing in this 450 trillion gap that you mentioned is a senior not being able to afford a meal or his heart medicine. It's a senior shivering in their apartment because they can't afford the electric bill. So meanwhile, the private systems like this 401k or IRAs in the US, pension funds, but also annuities, they waste 50% of the funds. That never makes it to the seniors. And so these systems were designed for the industrial age and do not factor in the current demographics and societal changes across the globe. So when we talk about social security collapsing, it does not mean that the government will shut down social security, right? It just means the government, like always, what will they do? Well, they just print an enormous amount of new money. We've seen this during COVID. We had 30%.
Why don't we have such printers at home? No, then it would
have them, shouldn't we?
Make life easier for everyone. Just print a little bit and go to buy in grocery shops, right?
I agree. There's just one problem with that, right? When you start printing money, the buying power on that money, will just be a lot less. And so that's likely what will happen. So the retirees will still be, in utter poverty because they won't be able to buy anything. We've seen this during COVID. You just print 30% more money. What you just have inflation that will make up for that. And so, governments will still pay the amounts that people were promised, but as you said, they won't have the same. These funds won't have the same buying power anymore. So,
well, if the system is so broken, why nobody hasn't stepped in to fix it? Because obviously there is a big elephant standing right there, right? And I always find so amazing when high impact investors like Michael jump in and don't retire when they see some cool impact projects. That's a compliment to you, Michael. But question to Walter.
So financial service institutions, we all know they operate within the system as it exists, right? They are very conservative and benefit from these inefficiencies. The executives running these companies have no incentive to change it. They are in the business of making money for themselves. They're not in the business of reducing inefficiencies for retirees or even to bring back some of those 50% of the funds that are wasted, right? And so often what is considered waste for the retirees is profit for these financial service organizations, right? So if you take insurance annuities as an example of trying to create market or longevity protections, all these stuff, right? Look at wealth managers that, try to convince the people to transfer their funds to the insurance companies. The insurance companies are not optimized for efficient asset management that actually prevents them from being able to bring back good returns. And so all of this money is locked in with significant suboptimal performance. And so TimeTrust can do all that and more for an order of magnitude cheaper and add significant waste recovery that these companies simply cannot do.
Okay. Walter, I just wanted to go back to the previous question. You mentioned that during the industrial age, this present system has been created. Because what happened in the industrial age is that the production went up, the incomes went up, but not the people. The number of people that went up slower than the production. But now we are into the AI age. So that would mean that the production will go up even faster, and it's not dependent on the people anymore. So that means...
Or less dependent.
Yeah, it's much less dependent on people anymore. So wouldn't that somehow support the financial system as it exists now, that increasing the income so that the people should be able to afford, or you think it will not work?
So, traditionally, when you had advances in technology that led to a wealth increase for the population, what happened, though, is when you look at what percentage of funds or of assets in a country are owned by what percentage of people, right? You will find that fewer people own way more money. And so I think what I'm afraid what will happen that a lot of these productivity increases will go to just to a very few percent of the population. And that's why it's so important to have support systems, retirement systems that actually can catch and cushion those people as we go through these massive structural changes.
Perfect.
Right. So now let's talk about solution finalists, because it sounds really revolutionary. So how TimeTrust exactly works?
Yes. So TimeTrust is the most impactful and I would say the only way of fixing the retirement crisis. The retirement industry wastes more than half of their funds, and insurance annuities actually even more. Think about this, Ben. 1 or more out of $2 of retirement funds are not going to retirees. So our main features to deliver this return is basically this waste removal And then we have a pooling approach, and together that recovers more than 50% back for the retirees, and that practically doubles the funds they have available in retirement for most people. So yeah, what could be more impactful than getting seniors out of poverty or preventing them from falling into poverty, right? So
yeah, you know, this is it's very interesting that the concept of retirement was actually come up with they came up with it in Germany. And originally, you know, there was no concept of retirement. People just worked until they died. And it comes from, you know, there is a concept in Japan called ikigai, which is extremely interesting.
I know that one. It's a cool one. Yeah, it's very nice.
It's a purpose to live. It's a purpose to live, right? What's the purpose of life? And for some people, it's to go to work. And for some people, it's to wake up and take care of their grandkids. For some people, it's to go and take care of their garden. So they actually never retire. And it goes back to something that you said, Sveta, which is, you know, a lot of people just die when they retire, right? And the reason is because they have, mostly it's because they have nothing to do, and they also don't believe that they have enough money to accomplish what they actually want to do, which could be building a local structure, contributing to the religious organizations, right? Building up a hospital, taking their kids on a world cruise. Yeah. So, you know, TimeTrust really solves that. It gives them a reason to live. It gives them a vision and the ability, basically, that extra 50% that's recovered, that means that they no longer have to just sustain themselves. They can now contribute back to their families, contribute back to their cities, contribute back to the society, you know, and take themselves on a world cruise, right? So it's a very impactful and a very important mission that we're on here. And so, you know, again, very glad to be here and happy to speak more.
Thanks, Michael. So, Walter, you threw twice this thing that you said that it reduces 50% income. So that means basically TimeTrust will double the retirement savings without making the people contribute more. It really sounds nearly too good to be true.
I know. So here's the thing to point out, right? We are not creating any new funds, right? We are just utilizing the existing funds more effectively. And effectively by having seniors come together as a retirement community. And this removes the financial burden of living longer. So the result is that everyone's usage of funds is optimized across the community and pooled without the waste of having to reserve half the funds for low probability outcomes. So let me give you an example of that. So without TimeTrust, retirees stretch their funds over roughly 30 years, you know, like 65 to, let's say, 95. Now, with TimeTrust, they only need to plan for 15 years, which is the average life expectancy, so which is about 80, right? So doing 15 years instead of 30 years, you know, if you have the drawdown and the payout over a 15-year period and 30 years, that napkin math roughly doubles that annual payout, right? And then the question is, well, what happens to those who live longer than 80, right? Well, technically their money is then down to zero. And here's where the magic comes in. Those people are covered by the pooled unused funds. So those people who pass away before 80, which is half the people, right? Since it's the average life expectancy, those funds are recovered from that waste, and then they basically go to the people that live longer. And that's
that sounds easy and fascinating, actually. So is it just the impact of older people helping each other? That's what I understand, right?
Yes, but you know, it's also much more than that, right? Because by people young, not just old, but young and old coming together, they help each other and themselves by doubling everyone's funds, right? When they come together, you know, you can pool it, and the end result is that nobody has to plan to 95; they just plan to 80, or the average life expectancy, which varies from country to country, and that doubles everybody's funds, together with all the fees and all the waste that's inherently baked into the system with you know, all the other various ways that the traditional institutions make money. And then there's, you know, the other thing is this is not just about charity or supporting the others, right? For most seniors, this is very self-serving, right? Since no one knows how long they're going to live, optimizing and removing waste just makes sense, you know. And if you can know you only have to plan to a fixed age rather than some maybe age, you know, is it 105? Is it 95? Is it 120? Who knows, right? If you don't know, that's where the insecurity comes from. And TimeTrust can fix that. It gives certainty to them, to their kids, the heirs, and everybody will have double the funds available to them.
But Walter, again, playing the devil's advocate, so this sounds to be perfect for small communities where everybody is kind of similar. But when you're talking about large communities or a country level, where you may be having people who have a lot of money, and you may also be having people who do not have the money to contribute.
Yes.
What about them?
Yeah, so that's fascinating about TimeTrust, right? So TimeTrust can double the yearly payments, whether someone gets $5,000 a year or half $1 million a year, right? So for millions that, basically for these millions of people, that will mean the difference between struggling and retiring with dignity. So yeah, we believe TimeTrust truly can make a difference for these people, whether you earn very, very little or whether somebody has a much higher income. This is truly something that touches the lives, we believe, of everybody. So,
yeah,
right.
Actually, if I can mention, we have already a number of platforms built. Some of them are almost built, but Walter brings 12 plus years of work in building AI platforms. And so we have these platforms that are doing some extraordinary things in philanthropy. We're planning to develop sort of a free platform for all nonprofits to be able to raise funds, while all of their volunteers and people that are members could actually generate enormous incomes for themselves that they could convert into TimeTrust, taking care of themselves. We're also working on a project which is extremely interesting, which is sort of the largest free AI nonprofit cloud, which will allow these nonprofits to raise more money for themselves, but also will allow impact products like TimeTrust to be sold, which is extremely interesting. And I just wanted to mention that, TimeTrust is a lot more in terms of other things that it's doing as well.
And how about people's nature? People do worry about different things, but they also do worry about money safety. So how does TimeTrust ensure that their money is safe?
Right. Security is non-negotiable. Now, what's interesting is TimeTrust actually never touches people's money. So we are just the technology powering established financial institutions who will be offering this product and holding all the funds. So most organizations can simply continue using the same top banking custodians and advisors they're already used to. So, and then we have access to some of the smartest people in asset management, and we believe we can actually deliver above average performance results on top of the waste recovery and on top of this pooling approach that I discussed earlier. But for now, all of our calculations are done on the typical 401k performance results or retirement fund performance results. And TimeTrust seems to beat them by more than 2x just on the pooling solution alone. And then the other waste and recovery would then come on top of that. So,
wow. So, how does AI help TimeTrust manage these funds better than traditional systems?
Well, I mean, when you look at AI, right, I think the biggest impact is that it literally fundamentally changes that everything we do, right? It'll make lots of jobs obsolete, which is why I mentioned earlier, it is important to bring financial security to as many people as we can. Doubling retirement funds for people allows them to retire sooner, and it will buffer these massive structural changes in the workforce that are ahead of us. And, finally, I also spent more than 12 years building these AI systems. So we will obviously use this AI to power TimeTrust, as well as the philanthropy that Michael outlined earlier. And, so nonprofits across the planet, as well as every senior and every person on the planet can benefit from having their retirement funds practically doubled.
Nice. And beyond the retirees, could TimeTrust also work for other groups like responders or teachers who don't have always strong pensions?
Well, absolutely. Anyone at any age who wants to reclaim more than 50% of their retirement funds, which they currently lose in the current system, can benefit. But no one deserves it more than those who serve others, we believe, like teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers. We've all seen this during COVID. So these are the people who dedicate their lives to society. And the least we believe we can do is that we can ensure that they can retire with financial security and dignity. So in fact, our first customers are going to be credit unions, these are membership organizations, and then also doctors, nurses, and actually healthcare workers. And we want to bring as much impact to those industries as we can.
Okay, now I want to play devil's advocate. So, because, can people then freely choose your solution, or it needs to be some governmental approval or something, some policies that they're allowed to do so? Or it should be implemented on the level of a country even. So did you do some checkups on this side?
So the answer is yes to everything. So there's paths where it can be offered with minimal financial regulation in the US. We are also in talks with several countries that have shown interest in this solution. Michael has a lot of contacts into that. And so we believe we basically want to follow every path, right? We have paths in certain situations where we can offer it very quickly. A certain path will require financial regulators in certain geographies to approve that, which we have started and launched already. And then some of the more progressive countries, they have reached out to us that want to engage with us on that as well. You can obviously imagine if you're a politician and you double the income for all your seniors, right? You can imagine what that does for your political chances of your political future, right? I don't think there's nothing better anybody can do than take your most important group of voters and double their income, right? So there's a lot of interest that we actually see with this effort.
Yeah, and Sveta, this is one of the largest impact plays on the planet. And what's interesting is the way we see it is that it's our responsibility to become the what we call H-Tech infrastructure backbone of the industry, right? We don't have to be the front-facing kind of solution for everybody, although in some cases we are going to be, right? So they could buy it directly from TimeTrust, but they could also buy it from their regular insurance company, from their bank, from their credit union. They could buy it through their nonprofit, right? The AARP could sell it for us. And all we are at the end of the day is just we're bringing this pooling and waste recovery infrastructure to the table and let everybody else sell it, right? It's not about us making money. It's also a little bit about us making money, but it's also about our partners making money. And it's mostly, it's about bringing this doubling of funds to the retirees.
Wow. I mean, the vision is amazing and large, and you're really talking about lifting millions out of poverty. But once again, as a devil's advocate, what is the biggest roadblock to make this happen?
Well, a big hurdle is spreading the knowledge, right? Most people don't know that what TimeTrust does is even possible. And so, well, I'm here to tell you it is possible. We all can cut the retirement funding gap. We talked all these trillions and trillions of dollars in half, and we can lift hundreds of millions of seniors out of poverty. Our research, our think tank, as well as our chief economist, clearly confirms this. And then we want to thank you actually for, picking up this cause and actually, helping to spread this knowledge about TimeTrust, and that we actually have a solution that can literally fix half of the entire problem, right? So we really appreciate that.
Of course, we will be also all like that one day, And so I guess even though you have an amazing impact investor on board already, Michael, right? You are here with Walter, but you might look for more investors and partners. So what kind of investors you are looking for to scale TimeTrust?
Yeah, so my last company I built, right? We exited the company at a 60 times that seed round valuation. So I can say this, that TimeTrust's potential is several orders of magnitude higher, because this is a much larger market and the impact is massive, right? I mean, just in one number, right? $40 trillion of 401k and IRA assets, or retirement funds in just one country, the United States. 40 trillion, okay? In comparison, the market for artificial intelligence is 300 billion. So that is just to outline how big the opportunity is. And then the problem we mentioned with 450 trillion, right? So the numbers this is the biggest impact play on the planet. And so, yeah, we're looking for partners that want to leave an impact and a legacy, but also that partners that care about strong financial performance and the higher return. We believe we owe our seniors everything that we have. Doubling the funds as senior has available to them will impact not just that seniors' finances, but their health, their mental well-being, their families and communities. And even the state, right, who is not on the hook anymore when someone runs out of funds. This will also supercharge the economy, because every dollar that the senior spends turns over in the economy roughly 60 times. So it's not just whatever that money comes, it's that money times 16 that you see the economic impact, and we can do this by simply removing that waste and taking that money that's, wasted and give it to the seniors. So.
Okay. And Walter, you must be knowing that impact investors, they always look for financial returns and social good. So how does TimeTrust balance these two goals?
Yeah. So, how do you make money, Walter?
Of course.
Or how, Michael, you make money?
With TimeTrust, there's actually nothing to balance, because TimeTrust by design is both extremely profitable and also ultra high impact. There is no way to do TimeTrust other than to include both, right? If we want to spread this to every senior on the planet, this only works when the existing financial institutions, make a profit. And so TimeTrust is set up to make this happen.
And by the way, even if you charge a tiny percentage on $450 trillion, you're still one of the wealthiest people in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So
I have one more question for you guys. So many pension funds today are slow moving and risk averse. How do you convince institutions to take a leap forward with TimeTrust? So what's your
so let me tell you a story. In my previous company, VoiceBase, I was pitching one of the most famous venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, Randy Komisar from Kleiner Perkins. And he gave me some really interesting advice. He said, you know what, bring me a riot in the streets product. And so I was like, what is that? He said, well, this is a product where if it is taken away, there will be a riot in the street. Okay. Now, TimeTrust is the ultimate riot in the streets product. Just imagine what would happen if you double the funds for everybody in retirement, and then you try to take it away. Yeah. So I think there is no more viral product than TimeTrust, and we believe that financial institutions will recognize that, right? If you have a neighbor that had 100,000 a year for retirement and instantly turns this into 200,000, and then he tells his friends, this product will sell itself. And we believe we will see the support of financial institutions as soon as the product is available.
Wow. Right. And now looking at another angle, so we noticed that you even have celebrities like Jean-Claude Van Damme. So what role do you think public figures play in spreading awareness of this issue?
Yes, so we plan to have Van Damme and others kicking the retirement crisis in the teeth. So he will
we're already at that stage.
Right. He will be our action hero and spokesperson, punching through 50% of ways to save seniors. So basically our plan is to have him cover the lives of extraordinary seniors and be a spokesperson for this opportunity that TimeTrust offers to seniors. And we'll have a special focus on longevity and well-being in their old age. And so, because once you double the funds for seniors, right, you also want those seniors to know, well, what can they do? How can they live a better life, a longer life? And so having people like Jean-Claude Van Damme to bring that message across is actually really valuable and helpful.
Just to mention, my family has been producing films and celebrity major productions for over 100 years. So I know a lot of celebrities. Jean-Claude is a good friend of mine. We've worked on a couple of projects in Thailand. And so, we have these very interesting concepts of major productions that could help transform the world by spreading the message. And TimeTrust is definitely a message worth spreading.
Wow. And somewhere I came across TimeTrust Princeton Research Center of Excellence. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we have set up that nonprofit as an institution to work together with academics in economics, actuary science, retirement, and finance from top universities. And our goal is to have TimeTrust leverage the advice from some of the smartest people in the fields. And so Michael, is set up in this nonprofit research center that we have in Princeton. So.
Wow. Nice. We are a bit over time, but I really want to cover the questions we have because it concerns really everyone on the planet. Mm-hmm. So one more question, Walter. For those watching, when should someone start actually thinking about retirement planning? Is it ever too early or too late?
Well, the answer is simple. Right now. The sooner you do, the more money you will have. And, whatever funds someone has, then TimeTrust can come in and double those for you. Mm-hmm. And so TimeTrust recovers more than 50% of that waste and optimizes it to the exact need of each individual by pooling and doubling those funds. It's basically a result of that. So
I have like you can have Ben's pension to start with.
And what about if we look at the fantasy side of it, so assuming that TimeTrust had succeeded at a global scale, what in your imagination would the future of retirement look like?
Yeah, so when TimeTrust scales globally and, we have the people that will be able to help us with, experience to scale to 60 countries, we believe retirement will stop being about scarcity and worries, and it will become about living and enjoying life. And, we can lift hundreds of millions of seniors out of poverty, and picture seniors traveling, starting new hobbies, enjoying time with family, free from money worries or the fear of ending up in poverty. And, governments also can breathe easier, and financial institutions that partner with us, they can thrive. So, yeah, we expect TimeTrust to play a crucial part to make that future of financial abundance, dignity, a reality. And I think we all can make that happen. So.
Wow. Nice. And last one, okay? I promise.
Yeah.
For viewers who want to get involved, whether as an investors, partners, or future retirees, how can they take action today, or how can they reach you?
Yeah, so TimeTrust is more than a product, right? It's a movement that reshapes retirement for everyone. So for those investors seeking a real impact, with the potential for large profits as well, please reach out. You can connect us via partners@timetrust.com. And let's change the world. There's no bigger impact play than this. We owe our seniors everything that we have. We will be seniors one day. Our kids will, and
if we don't die before.
Well, but
you never know when it ends.
But imagine this: you basically have double the funds available until whenever that is, short or long. Having the certainty you have double the funds that you normally have.
Yeah,
it's priceless. It's priceless,
Absolutely. So maybe last call to action, very short one from you, Michael, and from you, Walter. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, so first of all, start thinking about retirement, which is extremely important, right? Most people don't start thinking about it early enough, and that's a very important message.
So when we think about retirement, we look at our parents, we look at, in the United States, when you walk into a department store or into a Whole Foods, what you notice is you often see seniors filling up shelves and college kids, right? These are people that should not be there. These are not people that, likely want to be there. They're there because they don't have enough funds. It's because the system, took basically half of the funds that they had saved up over decades, and they did not have them available. And, this is the biggest elephant in the room. This is not something that you hear from the governments and the politicians, right? We want everybody to come together. Together we can fix this. That the math checks out, right? We all need to come together, join us, and we can change the world by lifting millions and millions of seniors out of poverty. And this is a reality today, right now. It's not a very popular topic from politicians, because no politicians get elected when they tell their voters, there's no more money or there's not enough money. Here is a solution that we can make happen. And I believe that the people that will be involved with this will be the heroes and the champions. And we all can leave a legacy and do a tremendous amount of good. So join us, reach out to us, and let's change the world for the better.
Amazing, Walter. Thanks so much. Thanks, Michael. It was really so inspiring, and we are there to support you in any way. As Ben will be like that and me like this. So I want to have at least double of 1,000 francs per month, right? Because in Switzerland the pension is actually not so high compared to the cost of living. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ben, Sveta, thank you so much for having us on the show.
Thank you, Michael. Talk soon. Bye, Walter.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So, dear viewers, key messages, I think it's take care, right? Let's take care of each other. Let's not forget the big elephants in the room. Let's solve the problems that is still possible to solve, not wait till it hits us in the face. Like many times as humanity, we are doing it, but there's solutions. Let's get together, changing systems if they're not working. I think that's the way. And care for each other. Yeah. Message of love. Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What an inspiring conversation. Impact investing is more than just finance. It's about shaping the world we want to live in.
If this episode sparked new ideas or possibilities for you, don't keep it to yourself. Get involved.
Subscribe for more powerful insights. Follow us on social media and be part of this movement.
Are you an investor making a difference? We'd love to feature your story in our next episode. Reach out and join us.
Let's build a better, more sustainable world, isn't it? Together. See you in the next episode.